Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome CJ show number 4. Here we are, EU edition. We're back on the European side of the equator. That does make sense. The side of the world, the ocean. EU show, CJ show number 4. We're joined by none other, obviously myself, Chrome, Jarzo, the main boys, but we've got Gregan and Cash. Woo! EU boys. Let's go,
Hello.
boys.
Hello.
Well, obviously, you know, for those, everyone knows, we all know Cash, but I want to start with Gregan as well. We all know Gregan, but I want to hop over to this side of the desk, should I say? This is a bit like an analyst desk.
Oh, don't rub it in.
Oh, sorry. That's a great segue, though. For those that don't know, I want to start with the Gregan, I guess, not situation, but what's been happening in the off-season, because I'm sure everyone does know, but just in case, do you want to give a bit of a backstory into your off-season and what you're up to now?
Yeah, so the end of the off-season, I got the unfortunate news that I wouldn't be coming back to RLCS. I don't want to go into the details of it. If you want to check that out, I put a tweet longer out about it. But it's just meant that I got a bit of a wake-up call. I'm now working harder than I've ever worked, doing all sorts of different things. So the main thing I've been focusing on is content creation. I've been streaming a load. I think in the last 20 days, I've done 60 hours on Twitch. And then got like YouTube videos out, one a day except for Sundays. Got my TikTok going. You know, I'm just trying to pump out as much content as possible. Doing a bit of coaching consultancy on the side. I've got I'm going to be doing some Pokemon trading card game commentary soon. You know, I'm going to go over and try that out, and there's loads of different things on the cards. I've also got a big project that I don't want to reveal just yet, but it required a set build, so that was quite good fun. And I've got a set built now, and we're going to be starting filming for that. And so just so much I'm getting on with to try and keep myself busy outside of Rocket League now.
Do you think, like, this is kind of weird. Every time something in my, like, say when I was playing, you know, something bad happens or something crazy, you're like, this is the worst thing ever. And then you look back, you know, 5 years down the track, 4 years, whatever, and you think that you know, put me where I am now. And I think for me, say, it was, I never really did content when I was playing, but now I'm able to do a bit more content. Do you think that maybe having this year where you can focus on content, grow your own brand a bit more, like maybe, you know, obviously it's a terrible situation, but do you think that there is, I guess, a positive side to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as when Nolly got dropped by Guild and then went over to KC. It's like, that's the best thing that could have happened to me. Similar kind of thing happened when Guild and I parted ways. You know, then that was when the casting thing. So every single time you move on from something, you think it's the end of the world, and then suddenly your world opens up and everyone starts reaching out. Especially when, you know, the people in this call right now are all people who are fortunate enough to have quite a successful esports career so far. So you always have opportunities outside of that. You know, it's a bit tougher when you're at the start of your career and you're not quite getting those opportunities. But for me, I've got so many connections now, so much I've learned throughout the years that I can go and do anything. And it's exciting. The things that I'm hearing from people like, hey, I want you to get involved in this project. I want you to come along and try doing this with us. And so many opportunities coming off the back of it.
That's beautiful. I'm just looking at Jarzo in a dressing gown as well. Can we just take note of that, chat? He's actually in a gown, and he got permission from me to do it. But I guess in terms of your, you had in the off-season, Green, you had some opportunities that you turned down, as you said, you had some coaching opportunities, things like that. I don't want you to like leak anything or, you know, stuff like that. But in terms of coach side of things, I'm really interested because you've got a very, not a unique view, but just a view on how coaches perhaps are not perhaps they could be doing more in terms of the outside, just the coaching side. I think. Do you want to pipe on that and perhaps what you want to bring if you were to jump into a coach team?
Yeah, the coaching role in esports, I believe, is more than just gameplay. There's so much more to it. There's performance psychology. There's the stuff around players' health that I think is really important. You know, their sleep schedules, their diets, their activity levels, you know, how they reset their mindset. It comes under performance psychology. There's so much to it. And I feel like, obviously, it's not all going to come under the coach umbrella. It's better to have that through an organization, and the org provides that support to try and separate those hats. You don't want to have one person telling you, make sure you sleep well, make sure you eat well, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. Gets a bit naggy at that point. But yeah, having an org and system that creates that environment for a player where they are a performance athlete in mindset and allow them to go out there and perform in that way, I think really helps them reach the next level. I think BDS was always a team that I praised as a caster because they seem to be doing a lot of that. You know, they have that training facility, they have performance psychology, they have RLCS, they have analyst role with Mew, right? He's not so much a coach, more like an analyst with the data side of things. So all of those factors coming together to make the right performance environment for a team is something I've always been a big believer in. And the jokes roll back to season 7 when I got called the water boy, and like that was, people saw that side of it of me bringing water for the players, telling them to wash their hands before they went out and played, performance psychology elements that I implemented into the team. So yeah, I think coaching's got a long way to go in Rocket League still.
Well, the reason I'm saying that, obviously, we're a little bit biased on this show. We've got a current coach, a former coach, hanging in here, but we've also got Cash Money, who does have a coach as well, Snasky. Now, Cash, we'll get into your individual stuff right now, but just while we're still touching on coaches, firstly, welcome to the show. You're here for the top 4 buff and nothing else, but you've got Snasky as a coach. What's he up to in the coaching side of things?
Overall, he's just working on our structure as a team, defensively and offensively, and always getting in weekly sessions with us, making sure we're working on points that we need to improve as individuals and a team. And he's just working hard as like us.
He's a freak. Well, look, I like Gregan's just like, on, you know what, you need to carry out water, you need to do this, and then Cash is like, actually, he's analysing, he's hanging out, he's doing good things. Chrome, what are your thoughts on the state of coaches? What do you reckon?
I mean, I agree with Gregan. Like, it's not fully developed. I think, honestly, down the line, there's going to be more people involved. I think having someone to just get you water at events is just like, as a professional player when I was there, just not having to get up and do it yourself, it's just like refreshing. Like having all your bases covered. Like, maybe if you need a tissue, Coach Gregan comes in, saves the day, has some tissues. Like, that's what a lot of GMs do too.
Yeah, I have a funny story about tissues. KDOP, one event, asked me, do I have a tissue? And I went, oh, I'm really sorry, I don't. Every single event after that, I had a packet of tissues. Just off the back of that one moment.
Wow.
And it's like always little things where you come across it. Like, I don't have an iPhone, but they kept asking, like, oh, do you have a charger? And I'd be like, oh, I only have Android. And then I used to carry an Android and an iPhone charger around with me with a battery pack. Just because, you don't want them to have to worry about, oh, where am I going to charge my phone? So yeah, Chrome's on it there. Like, managerial side of coaching is still a big factor.
Jarzo, you're a bit of an early pioneer of that. I remember you were sort of the land boy, making everyone feel comfortable sort of stuff. You do that.
I mean, I can give you a little history lesson.
Oh, come on,
Season
man.
5, Season 5, Worlds, OG Season 5,
Mm-hmm.
long time ago. Almost no one had any competent managers or anything. I was getting everybody waters. I was telling everybody what their match times were.
Everyone.
I was pointing everybody out where their stations were. I was making sure people were on the bus. Oh, not even just my team. It was all over the place. I was like everyone's administrator manager. It was a time.
I will say, if there wasn't Jazzo in the scene, there wouldn't be structure in terms of scrims and all that. Jazzo is the pioneer of that too.
You did
because back then,
didn't he?
It was just you hit up the next team, hey, you guys can you guys scrim tonight? But now Jazzo's
calendar.
Can we schedule this day next week? And then all the managers and coaches back then jumped on that too.
Have I ever told any of that on?
I don't think you did.
Okay, so my first event was, if you guys remember, a long time ago, the X Games.
Oh shit! Yeah, in the tent.
Yep.
Long time ago in the tent. Yep.
Ash wasn't born then.
I had just signed to G2, and one of my biggest selling points to G2 when I was interviewing and trying to get contract locked down was DreamHack Atlanta was happening the weekend after Minnesota, so my house was open for a boot camp, and I wanted to schedule scrims because I wanted our time at the boot camp to be productive. Every team I asked at X Games looked at me like I was crazy, just asking for hey, can you you want to scrim on this day? They're oh yeah, sure. What time? What do you mean? What do you mean? we just message people on the day, bro. I'm okay, whatever. And then a few months goes by, and that's kind of how scrims go. No one took me serious. All scheduled scrims never actually happened. And then it finally got to the point where we wanted to scrim certain teams, so they kept getting snatched up before we could message them on the day of when we wanted to scrim them. So I started messaging people the day before. I'm hey, let's lock down some scrims tomorrow. Let's do it. And it just kept happening, and then slowly more people started doing it. And then the time period before you would schedule ahead got longer and longer, and then now it's I don't even know what it is, Rob. It's is it Friday, Saturday?
It used to be when you were coaching back in season 6, it was the Sunday before the week. Now it's like a Monday the week before.
Yeah.
It's
I
pretty
noticed
crazy.
that. I noticed that over the 3 or 4 years that I was organizing scrims, it would just get further and further back because the teams that don't get the better scrims message earlier to
They
try
ask
and
early.
snipe them.
Yep.
And then every team snipes further and further back to try and get the top teams to scrim them.
Exactly.
I feel like that's because you ask someone and they're like, "Nah, we're full this week," and then you're like, "Right, what about in 2 weeks?" You try and just lock it.
Legit.
I mean, that's kind of what my strat was, right? Like it was. I feel like we were always getting outbid in season 4. Like we would want to scrim Energy or Cloud9, but they would like already have someone, and I wanted to scrim like the other teams of the big 3 because that's who it was. And then like I'd also want some variety, get like some fly quests in there and some other people, but it was like got to get those in early. So I know what the competition's like. People want to get them locked in, or else they miss out.
What made you start this? Like, you're right. No one scheduled scrims. What was it about you, Jarzo, that wanted to bring a bit more professionalism to the scene?
There was one night where I was just like hanging out with the guys, and there was like when you're messaging people the night of, there was a very good chance that you decide to play ranked as a team for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I had enough of that. I was like, no, that's not happening. Like, I'm getting it scheduled. We're getting good quality practice. Oh, this was at a time when we only scrimmed like once a day as well.
Yeah.
Like very early on, you only scrim like once a day. So it all kind of like it started with me just not liking them using ranked as practice because that's terrible practice, especially back then. And then now it's where it is today.
You're the absolute pioneer, which is why I want to hop over to Cash because he has zero idea what we're talking about because this man was only born in 2019. He only came onto the scene, I believe, was it 2019, Cash? Was that on you first?
I think it's something like that, yeah.
DreamHack year? Yeah, I think that I'm
I think it was just after the DreamHack.
It looks like, Intellectuals, was that your first team? Confirm or
deny. I think that was my first actual good team, yeah.
Well, I mean, look where you are now, 3 years later. Anyway, I want to go back because for those who don't know of Cash, he is, I mean, Gregan, does he need introduction? He's one of the mechanical demons, one of the guys that I would say the European on the inner side would say that could be one of the best players in the world. Has the potential to be. Would you agree with that, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been on a team where the whole team gets underrated, but then they're like, oh yeah, but if Cash pops off, then you're screwed. But then like that team would always then make a top 8, top 4, and everyone's like, how are they making it? And it was just like, you watch the gameplay, you'd be like, oh yeah, Cash has just scored 3 wonder goals in every single game, and now they've made it. Like, what was the first one? Was it Redemption or something? With it was like
with Mike Boy and Aussie.
Mike Boy and
Aussie,
Aussie.
right?
Yeah, you and Aussie. And in that team, it was like you'd get 400 plus points a game. And then everyone was like, geez, Cash is unreal. And then obviously with Misfits, there was similar times there. Towards the end, I think you were a lot more balanced. The team like Arju and Matane both stepped up a lot. But there was points where it was like, oh, Cash didn't score these wonder goals, then the team would have had no chance, you know? That's always been your trope. And obviously Twitch Rivals, you carried in that. When we played Twitch Rivals together.
I mean, only a little.
Like you're obviously you had Misfits. Now the story that sort of I've not more known, but you guys had a bit of unluckiness. Would I say on Misfits? You guys were always sort of around the mark. People touting you as have the potential to be anything really, but then just like sort of just always falling at the last leg. You don't know what's the insight there? Because this was like it wasn't like a meme, but this was like a renowned thing. Misfits, like they're always going to be just there, but like just not quite make the major. Talk to us about, I guess, your past year, the 2021-22 season.
I mean, I think 2021 overall was a great year for me as a player, but obviously with Misfits we had the on and off season, and I think the main reason for that was we were always thinking about like what we'd have to do to get the major, what we'd have to place, instead of just playing it out and seeing what happens. But I think, as I say, Misfits was a great team for me. We were on and off, hot and cold, but it's made me who I am today. So
did you always this is a hard thing to say. I was going to say, do you always think you're the best player on the team? A lot of people on Misfits would say, as Gregan said, there's a lot of past teams where Cash, if he pops off, he could be anything. Do you sort of have that your own like self-confidence in that like you believe that you can, on your day be one of the best players in the world?
Yeah, I think that's one of the positive things about me. My self confidence is at an all time high. I'm always confident, and I think that's what makes me thrive in like high pressure situations or big games.
So now we're at a situation where, firstly, I mean, you've joined Quadrant. This is massive. This is obviously Lando Norris's org. So, I mean, round of applause. Yeah, bring in a new. We'd love a new org entering the scene, and you've done this. Can you tell me? I don't know if you can tell me, but how did this all come about? How did you get Quadrant? Because this is crazy.
It was kind of hard. I think Quadrant was looking for a team for a while. I'm pretty sure. Obviously, they're UK based. They love the UK players. Me and Eeks were formed quite early into the off season. Then obviously we heard the news about Wave splitting with Endpoint, which was obviously we wanted to snag Wave. A full UK team is obviously great vibes. No language barriers. It's perfect. And just one day Quadrant. I think Quadrant kind of approaches individually just to see what we were doing because did have their eyes on UK players. Then obviously we formed a team, and yeah, they just wanted us. I don't really know if there's much else I can say about that.
So how did you land this team though? This is as you said, Wave was on Endpoint. This is I want to say a bunch of misfits. Excuse the pun. But we're coming together. The UK boys are coming in. There's probably, I guess, what were your expectations? You were a Goldbridge Bowl. You're this team without an org, and all of a sudden you're getting top 4 in your first event. Like, how did this all come about? And how was your off season?
So my off season was pretty hectic, to be honest. I left Missus quite early into it, and then I think after Luminosity decided to disband, I received a message off Eek, so he just said he's really interested in me. We've also tried out in the past in RLCS, and we worked really well together. So I was like, yeah, let's try something, see what happens. We obviously tried out some players. The chemistry was perfect, and I think me and Wave we've always had that kind of chemistry. We played a twos land back in maybe a year ago now when we won it, and we've all like Wave's always tried to get me off Misfits and other teams, but it's never actually happened. And then we just connected the dots in the off season. When everyone's a free agent, it just made sense.
Yeah, I feel like there's
Those
quite a few of those in Europe, isn't there? Players who've wanted to play together, but it's not quite worked out. Like Jorias and Archie were saying the
Yeah,
same
that's a
thing, right?
perfect example. Yeah,
I was
that's
going to say
literally a
it
perfect
sounds
example.
extremely similar to the story we heard 2 weeks ago about them too.
Yeah.
Are there others that you guys know of like that?
I get like Vatira with French players, like similar kind of vibe there. All the Spanish guys coming together. The Dutch
on
players,
G1.
G1. The Dutch players playing together.
Maybe
yeah,
Jack
I
and
think-
Nolly.
Yeah, Jack and Nolly. Like we were going to sign Jack at Guild back when we picked up Bluey, but then that all fell through because Dignitas wouldn't sell him, and so I think Jack and Nolly have always wanted a team since then. So yeah, like there's quite a lot of those in EU, and it's just by circumstance that people have stayed apart because of their teams or whatever. Like Seiko over to BDS, at LA, Seiko's just chilling with the guys, and yeah, they want to team up. They just got to get the orgs to agree on it.
Is it a lot of like regional?
Yeah,
driven,
yeah.
like desire? Because it
Yeah,
sounds like you're talking about G1 with Spain and BDS
Yeah,
Psycho's
Tox-
French wants to join them.
EG, right? Tox and Catalysm played when Catalysm was underage, so like they will have played back in the day. So it's mostly during that formative stage when players are on their come up. There'll be a top player in the same region as them who'll sort of nurture them and be like, yeah, you're going to be amazing one day. Like K-Dop on his stream played with Zen for hours and hours and hours. And then that was sort of how they nurtured him, and then in the French community bring him in. Like the UK guys, if you've all got a Discord together, so you're hanging out on there, and so like that's where the communities within EU have split up by region, and it's definitely linking up now the best it ever has. And I think this is going to make it the strongest Europe's ever been. After a few months, it's going to take a bit of time, but I think it's going to make Europe that bit stronger.
If you're Ivan on EG, are you worried?
No, he's part of the German.
No, he speaks German. Yeah, he's part of the German friendship group. Yeah,
so it's by language, not by country, right? So like Astral's part of the Francophiles, which is not Francophones, not Francophiles.
Francophones,
Yeah, Francophones. So all the French speakers. Itachi's also from Morocco, but is a French speaker.
Eversax as well. Belgium.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see what happens with Liquid down the line. I think that might happen to them one day. Oski will join the UK boys. Atto might join the Frenchies. I think right now it's good for them because they work well as a team. But when that team starts to break, gameplay wise, we'll see what happens with Moist or with BDS, where the nationalities split up.
Is that good or bad for the region? Like having so many different like sub, little groups, I guess, compared to NA, which is more just NA.
I think that's hard to say. I don't know.
That's
I think
hard,
it's a
yeah.
double-edged sword. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's good because if teams from the same kind of country team, they've always got a strong bond and a good foundation, but also at the same time, there could end up being massive fallouts and everything. So I just think it's too hard to say.
It's
I
probably
just think it's better in general. I could go on for hours about it, but like I think Johnny's mentioned it a few times. It's really good for young talent because they have a much smaller cohort of very good players who are looking at them. You know, like Stizzy right now, Spanish player, wouldn't get a look in if everyone was from the same area like in North America because he's just another young mechanical player. But because he's Spanish, he's got those Spanish guys who are giving him advice, nurturing him, teaming up with him in little small tournaments, and then entering RLCS, all that kind of stuff.
It's so interesting hearing the difference between NA and EU because we kind of do the same thing with culture and personality, but I guess it just makes it so much easier when like the culture of your entire continent is just so regional based.
Yeah.
100%.
So, I mean, you talk about fostering young talent. It's a little bit of a good segue because I was gonna mention Abjack before. He's obviously fostered Chronic, but I heard a rumor in the off season, Cash, that Jack was sort of had a little bit of eyes set on you. Was there an approach from Jack, or was this you sort of smirking over
Yeah,
here?
there was. Yeah, there was an approach. We tried. Well, me and Ixo tried him out, but it just didn't work. It just didn't feel right. So, and obviously Jack was planning on moving to NA, but I want to stick to EU because I personally think it's a better region. So obviously I want to stay where the best competition is.
Oh,
Don't want to free Jenny to the major.
is that a swing at Roberto down there? Rob, what are your thoughts?
How many top fours do we have in NA compared to EU? I'm just saying.
I don't know.
Mate,
You got Furia, you got E2, you got FaZe.
You haven't
I guess,
faced
yeah,
a 16th seed playing like the best team in the world on a random game in Europe yet. That's when you really hate your region. You come
I
up
experienced
against
that on Misfits with Cooks' Minions a lot.
Yeah, they just come out of nowhere. They have a pop-off game, and you're like, God, that's best team in the world. You watch them in the next game, and it's like watching champs playing Rocket League.
Yeah.
Is that not possible in NA though? Do we have any pop-off bubble teams that could? Do we see upsets?
I feel like when it comes to bubble teams in NA, there's just a lack of confidence in those younger players because they've never played at the highest level. Whereas in EU, there's so many players that have already been there. Like Cookser is a perfect example, and like it's just so hard to foster new teams without like direction because they're just winging it pretty much. A lot of those younger teams, they don't know what really works and what doesn't.
It's kind of like the mental problem you guys have, CJ, before you retired. Is like, you're not confident, and that's all these young players in NA. Whereas you always have these like old talents like cycling down in EU. I feel like. Whereas NA, I feel like as soon as people leave the core top, they just kind of like give up.
And go coach mode.
Hope it happens so often.
Coach mode. I see that. That's yeah. So you're saying EU has more of the older boys. They're coming down. They're thinking, don't worry, we can beat anyone. Which is, was that like the stigma around NRG? That was a beautiful segue as well. Is that everyone coming up against them, even if they weren't playing that well or they weren't that good, it was like, oh no,
they're
it's
weak.
NRG.
Yeah.
But now I feel like that stigma's like gone, or is it? Because they got top 8.
I think it's just shaky. I feel like a lot of teams
Is when they were like super dominant, and then once it's like it's anything in competition. It's like hyenas. Like if you see a weakness, you're gonna exploit it as much as possible. So teams are gonna feel confident whenever they play that team again.
What was that weakness?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe 20 demos is a pretty bad weakness. I don't know. I think that's pretty up there, cut and dry.
Yeah. I think NRG is solid. Like what I've been analyzing a lot of their gameplay because it does well on the views, but yeah, they are they are a solid team, but they just lack a few fundamental differences the modern year or two ago Rocket League has developed. They don't seem to do that very naturally. So and I think that's the same case for a lot of veteran players. If they don't get that young talent coming in who's new, fresh-minded, maybe like coach even, right? Like a new coach could change that up for them. So that could be interesting. But yeah, you can get a bit set in your ways. And so when you're having those bad days, you default back to your old habits. And I've noticed that a lot with them, that they've got a lot of sort of 2019 bad habits that come out.
Yeah. And with them too, it's when I coached them back in the day, they were always a team that played off other teams' mistakes and they would capitalize off it. But everyone's getting so much better now, and you're not really gonna get those opportunities anymore. You got to start forcing them, and they're never a team to do that.
Yeah, they lack a bit of creativity, right? So it'll
Yeah.
get them so far because there'll be a lot of teams in that 9th to 16th that they can punish mistakes on, but you got to start doing safe risks now in Rocket League and having a understanding of what that looks like and structuring around it so you can start breaking down teams a bit more, forcing errors a bit more.
I love that though, because it's sort of, you know, the old NRG was a lot more sit in net, as you said, counter attack, punish mistakes. But now it feels like when you've got a matchup, more often than not, the team winning is a team that's willing to, you know, put themselves out there, not overcommit or something, but just try and make something happen. Whether that's, you know, going for some 3-man pass plays, pushing up their third man a bit more, or, you know, you see what V1 did on the weekend, just willing to send that person in to be a human wrecking ball. Like, I like that that's where we're at with Rocket League right now, where it's, you know, we don't just have like the, you know, sit in net counter attack teams that are just like locking themselves in for top fours all the time and just punishing mistakes. Like teams are being aggressive, but not getting punished for it. So I like where the game's at. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, there's still counterattack heavy teams. Just everyone's just quick to recover now. So teams are, like you said, making opportunities for themselves and not just sitting in net.
Imagine if we had Prime Veloce
Oh,
right now.
Prime Veloce.
Oh god.
That's honestly Gen G right now.
Gen G.
Oh, that is harsh on
That's
Gen
a
G.
massive statement.
Bro.
I'm kidding,
Quadrant, I think, on the cusp sometimes when they're having a bit of an off game of being like Veloce. I think it's when you guys start popping off, you look much better. Like when Ixo and yourself were popping off with Wave cleaning up around the gaps, you guys look great. But then when you're playing like a standard game, it can get a little bit like, let's just wait for them to make a mistake, right?
Yeah. I kind of agree in a way. We do that quite a lot when people aren't feeling it on the day. We try and capitalize on mistakes a lot more.
I think it's a Snasky thing. I think Snasky's teams have always had a good structure whereby they can fall back on the structure to, you know, hold out and not concede very often. But then it doesn't sort of account for that on the ball creativity that you need now in Rocket League to be able to outplay a team and break them down. So it's like it's a great floor raiser, but then it's on you guys to bring that ceiling up to win tournaments.
Yeah.
I want to go back, Chrome, because you sound a little bit salty about the Gen G situation.
No, I'm not salty.
Let's hop back here because
They got a number. They got a number. It's all good.
But is this like an EU style? I know Jack sort of alluded to it before. He chatted about just being able to sort of sit behind the ball a bit more and just the space in general that NA teams give compared to EU, that he really likes it. Is this like an EU thing, or is this like a Gen G sort of thing they've implemented?
I mean, in EU, back then in that last season, you had Carmine Core that went for every ball, right? And then you had Liquid that went for every ball. So, and then on top of that, a lot of the bubble teams go for every ball. So you can't. That's why Dignitas always struggled in like their Swiss and all that. But they've always been like that team that plays for counterattack and that midfield control. And Nolly, I mean, he just gives me the vibe that he's just a big fan of BDS, and he kind of warped his playstyle to be very like controlling of the midfield. I mean, if you ever watch him play, he's very like safe positioning, kind of like Torment in NA. So they kind of like are trying to be like the new energy / BDS of the region, where they're just focusing on controlling and making teams punish themselves. And it's been paying off for them so far.
Yeah, Jack's mentioned that, right? He said for a while he thought that the mechanical playstyle was the future of Rocket League, and then after seeing BDS and G2 make the final on opposite sides and be like, oh, these teams play a bit more solid and like team-oriented, control-oriented. He sort of changed his mindset around it, and he sort of reeled it in a bit and was like, we don't just need to throw ourselves around constantly.
Correct.
Cash,
What a big change.
Did you think, Cash, that the boys going over there to NA would be as successful as they are? I guess they're basically a top 2 team now. It's hard to argue they're not a top 2 team, I guess, based on their results. Did you think that this was possible?
No, to be honest, I didn't think they would. I mean, they didn't really, from what I know, they didn't really have much practice with each other and stuff. And I know I personally didn't rate Nolly as much as I do now, just because of obviously the past with Guild. But I mean, I'm happy to see them do well. I'm still surprised though.
Yeah, I think they're surprised, right?
Surely, like, does this open the door, Gregan? Does this open the door for teams thinking, hang on a minute, we can, Jack and Noli, this is a team that they just formed. It wasn't like these guys were, the best players in Europe. Obviously, phenomenal players still, for their own right, but they weren't. You could argue they weren't the best player on their team. Obviously, Nolly had Astral, Jack had Jorius back in the day, so they've come together as, I guess, more playmaker sort of team-oriented players to get top 2. Does this open the door for other teams? Well, let's all go to NA. Well, basically, that's happened anyway.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that the way they've done it and the way James Cheese have done it is a good way to do it, of like having players come over, join an American, like a player from the region, maybe a structure from the region or whatever it is, with Realize on James Cheese, Chronic and Illusion on Gen G, that kind of vibe. I think that's a good way to do it. I'm not a big fan of the way Fury and Complexity have done it, of like leaving your region as a full team to go to a region for money, because I just think it takes away from the SAM region. Like now SAM as a region has lost 2 of their strongest teams, and rather it should. I mean, obviously this relies a lot on Sinex, but it should instead be, let's give SAM more money, let's give SAM more eyes and content around them. But yeah, I think it's a result of the structure that Europe and North America as regions have a much better system than the emerging regions. So like I thought back in the day, MENA teams would move to Europe. I tried a few times to move Sandrock Gaming before to Europe with teams that I was scouting for, but the cultural thing there stopped them, because they're very family focused in the Middle East, where they want to stay with their family and support their family and everything, especially with the younger players. So that stopped them moving to Europe. But that's what Itachi's done, right? He moved from Morocco over to Europe. So it's literally Europe and North America, the regions that are drawing people in. I think the APAC situation, I think that's just a unique one of, getting a free spot at the major.
I guess that could be like if Gen G had moved to South Africa or something.
Yeah,
Except
yeah.
Imagine that.
Not as good.
Isn't an EU team thinking of... I've heard rumours that there's an EU team wanting to move to SSA. Just heard about that?
Was it not NA?
That'd be a mistake.
Was it not NA? I swear I saw a tweet about an NA bubble team or something, or a bubble player wanting to move to SSA.
Oh, maybe it was...
Oh, that was like a joke, I think. I saw the ones where there's
okay.
like NA players moving to APAC, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
I mean,
Yeah.
Johnny, I guess, raises an interesting point in chat that, you're not going to get the NA EU salaries if you're in SAM, but is that worth sacrificing for guaranteed land spots?
Well, I think it's the land spots are the biggest problem, right? Like the lack of flexibility within the 5-5-2-2-2-1-1 system. Like it needs to be that South America could have brought 3 or 4 to majors. Same thing with MENA, right? Now MENA's teams are just going to miss out because there's only 1 spot. Whereas that competing for 5 spots in a more competitive region that gets more eyes on it, it's like it's worth that risk, because even if you don't make the major, you're in a region that gets viewership. So
it's almost like they could have done some change this season. Like imagine if they adopted some sort of seeding. You know how like they had extra spots for performing teams at majors, performing regions at majors. It's almost
Sam
like
and MENA.
they did the two seasons back to back now of the same format. Whereas like one change, they could have made majors seeded, like region spots seeded, based on like international seeds. They could have done.
Well,
I mean, they could also do like for Worlds where they did a play-in stage, like have your 8 invited teams based off points for these majors, and then do the other 8 spots isn't you have to qualify for.
That's harder though, right? Because Sonics, they like to keep their events short.
Yeah.
Cheap.
Yeah. I didn't want to say it, you did, but you know.
True.
I don't want to say.
I mean, I guess I don't have to be PR in this show, and I guess Greg doesn't either. So
No, I mean
yeah.
it's
They
also
like
a
cheap.
business, isn't it? Business
Yeah.
try to do it for as least money as possible, which is a fair thing.
That's
doing play in every major, I feel like it also raises the point that I feel like we've talked about in the past, how we think majors feel like world's class events. Giving it a play in will make it even closer to that, and less of a distinction between majors and worlds at that point. So that's kind of a struggle. I just don't know a better way of getting other regions more spots.
I'm curious, Gregan and Cash, what did you guys think about the wild card, like, for Worlds?
I thought it was good. I thought it was a good opportunity just for more teams like Mina, for example. They had another team that went in and they actually did pretty decent. I think Sam had 3 teams, right? They had the club that went in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think wildcard was good for new teams to get an opportunity, and I think that's what RLCS is kind of missing right now. There's just not enough spots for teams to give them a chance to improve, and that's why teams like Fira are moving over, because the competition isn't as good as it is in NA.
Yeah, it's mind blowing to me that there are players in the top of their regions that have still not played at a LAN. You know, like I know obviously we had lockdown and everything like that. That's the unfortunate circumstance. There's loads of great players who developed during that period. But after that full season, there's going to be players going to this major who didn't get a chance to play at LAN. Like Cash, for example, right? Cash didn't make a single LAN. Yet, you know, the experience you had at the Commonwealth or the 2v2 LAN, you know, like that's an experience you're missing out on. And so whether it be through stuff like the DreamHack circuit we had in the past of more in-person events, or we create a wider spread, like maybe, you know how the OCE region used to do the OCE LANs at the end of seasons? You know, maybe we could start having EU, like the Invitational is a great way to do that, right? So if next season the Invitational regional for each region could be a LAN, that would, I think, be a much better step than more teams at majors.
Wait, what if we're one step away? What if Sonics don't want to change too much per season, but their change for like how teams get invited to certain regionals is them trying to make the invitational into a more important thing, and then eventually get to a LAN? Because I was just thinking, like, we talked about that before the season started, right? About how like a regional LAN event as an invitational would be good.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like
That's
have done that when you could have the LAN? So I don't think they need to like test out having an invite-only third regional.
I mean, that could be a budget thing, right, at this stage.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just obviously that is a talk that this year's been a bit the B word. Gregan hates the B word, the budget word. I guess if we had regional LANs like you alluded to, or even I floated the idea around with Johnny about, you know how COD have, I guess, the open format for tournaments where you have like, you know, that 100 teams competing all day long, like the day before the event, like the open bracket. Would that be like a cool thing to have at events? Like even if you don't make the major, there was like one spot or something that you had to fight through. You had to play like, you know, 8
last chance qualifier.
Yeah, like a last chance sort of thing for the other RLCS teams.
That's pretty similar to how DreamHack Opens used to work.
Yeah, they'd have like
a bit more open, but
yeah.
Because we used to have, I mean, it wasn't 32 teams total.
There was 4. It was like 4 invited, 4 through the online qualifiers, like 2 in Europe, 2 in North America. Then the rest would be sign up to event, and then so it was like 4 get paid for through the open qualifiers, and I think there were some bubble teams that made it through that back in the day.
I remember WSOE.
I remember losing that team.
WSOE was it Birds and the Bees made it through to WSOE out of NA?
Yeah, they beat me in the finals.
And
when I was coaching Energy, by the way, mind you.
Oh, but Energy still went.
Yeah, there was some teams that invite. Yeah.
And then what's the other one I'm thinking? There was another one that happened like that.
The DreamHacks.
Was it Leipzig? There were like 2 back to back. I think that.
Yeah,
that
Leipzig and WSOE.
Leipzig.
WSOE was the one where Alpha had to go to bed, so Barcelona didn't play the finals, even though they were sitting in the lower bracket finals, and it was on at like 3 a.m. We made it to 3rd place in that one. And then Leipzig was like the next week, and I remember we qualified for that because Vitality loved that we qualified for that because it saved us having to pay to go to that event. Because if you didn't make it as an org team, you'd have to pay to travel to the event. So yeah, that was the qualifier system, was to get free travel and hotel at the events.
That was, I don't know. The dream. I always allude back to that 2019 year. Maybe it was just because when Cash was born.
Year?
But the DreamHack year, like it was just the best. Like we had the lands like popping off left, right, and center. And I guess someone, I'm not say someone. I'm not trying to ego them, but I remember seeing on Twitter someone posted about third-party lands. Who was that made that tweet very recently? That we don't have any more. Where are all the third-party events? Someone might know.
Was it OSM?
But yeah, I think it was OSM. Yeah, you're right. So
I think it was OSM. Yeah.
He sort of said like where's all the third-party TOs? Where's the events? And that's kind of like the problem we keep coming back to. You know, we can talk about the format or the invite regionals, but we've basically got like a 10 or 11 month season. Like we don't really have any room anymore for, your dream hacks and stuff like that to come in. Like Gamers 8 felt so rushed. Like it was in between the last major and Worlds. It was like, all go crazy three event thing in a month. Like where's
as
the
a
gap?
spectator, I hated Gamers 8. I don't know if anyone else, like, because everyone here was like, I guess not, it's like, you guys are relevant to the scene. I was like, I'm out of it, and I just did not care about Gamers 8. It was so poorly placed, timing-wise. There were teams that, like, couldn't go. There were teams that were getting subs in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even the team I wanted to root for, G2, was, like, using a stand-in. Like, so dumb.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's constraints of our season, right?
I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's because the season's so long. It's like impossible to really put it in a third-party LAN, and then when you do, no one's really going to go because they want to take a break. I mean, Gamers 8, a lot of teams didn't go because they wanted that break before Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it makes it a lot harder for TOs to even actually like think about running the events if they're not going to get the best teams.
I mean, there's that slot between final online and the major, which you could run stuff, but then it's quite intense for the teams who make the major. But yeah, that, like, when you look at the teams who aren't at the majors, there's so much spare time, right? Like from full invitational to winter open qualifiers, like that's 3 months or so, right? So it's just, the problem is then for the top teams, there's not much incentive to do these tournaments when there's so much else going on. Same thing with the off season, right? Like the off season was short for the teams who made Worlds, but then when you go to the team that didn't make the London Major, it's like from May until October or something, they didn't have anything on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem with the system right now, is it's very top heavy, where the teams who qualify for majors, they get a lot going on.
Do we need like a 2-split season or something? Like get rid of that third split. Is that just like if we just had like a 3-month window of off season, where we had more of a clustered, I don't know, 2-split thing that ended in, say, like April or May, and then we had from May to like September where we could just have lands like BTS, stuff like that.
I have a framework in my head. You have 2 splits.
Ooh.
You have 2 splits, right? Same format as we do now. Open into cup into invitational. Invitationals become lands.
Woo!
Regional lands. Okay.
Sheesh.
Mm-hmm.
Then the missing split is the middle one, which you can fill with 2 international LAN events hosted by third-party TOs that are relevant to Worlds qualification.
Oh.
I guess I was thinking like maybe they give points already as well to your standing.
Yeah, they give some sort of equivalent to your like major points.
And they
like
could do
Worlds qualification points.
They could do online qualifiers for that, or all sorts of things to fill the gap before those events as well. It's like a different format to qualify in as opposed to the RLCS format. Right?
That could pop. That framework, that could pop off.
That'd be so cool because, excuse me, you could tell, like, say, plan out the season and say, righto, this year it's BTS and, like, WSO or something like that. You can tell 2 TOs, like, you have the LAN this year, like the 2 LANs that are going to qualify, and then they can set it up. Or TOs will obviously want to come to Sonics. Hey, we want the 2023 like one of the spots in this season or that season. And I felt they could plan so far ahead these like third-party events that would have spots. That'd be so cool because then every year the 2 lands could be different as well. Like different people running it. Could be a different format.
More lands. It's feeling a bit more towards the CS:GO structure, right? Of all sorts of different lands run by different people with different routes to qualify for the big events. And like I think there was one recently over in Australia because I know Jasmine Veracity, who did Gamers 8, the host, she was hosting it out in Australia, and that was called Road to Rio. And now there's the Rio event coming up, which they're all going to. So like that event was a LAN, which you probably had to do online qualifiers to get to, and then that event was your qualifier to get to the major. And then that major will be a way of getting points to get to Worlds or whatever it is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest thing here is you have to probably retain the actual RLCS ecosystem, right? Because the Dota 2 and the CSGO ecosystem is almost entirely third party, except for CSGO major qualification, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then all of Dota's events, don't they all feed, like all the majors which are third party hosted, don't they all feed into TI?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use Dota as a good example because they have a really big issue of every event throughout the year feels pointless compared to the final one because people only tune into TI. So like they have an issue in their scene of the whole of the year is a waste of time, it feels like, for orgs and for players. But yeah.
I mean, I guess that means like the majors from like RLCS majors already feel world's class, right?
Yeah.
So if you drop one, I mean, they already do feel world's class, and they do matter. Probably have to make them more relevant than the third party hosted events. I'm not sure. There's probably some like inner math to do.
It's
if
more
that ever
like
actually happens. But
Sonics, you know, they have such a strong grip, I guess, on the esports scene that they'd have to loosen that to let some third parties, which they sort of did in 2019 with DreamHack and they had heaps of events. But it seems like now with their system that they're going for, you know, the point system, the whole season tying together, you know, the year-long season, they've really taken a hold of the whole year. Instead of before we had the 6-month windows where there were sort of gaps in between and it was clear where orgs would jump in. Like we used to have the E-League, like December after Worlds, which was a really cool separate event. Back in the day, we had the 6-month seasons, and then we had other things coming in, and then obviously we had the DreamHack year where that was just crazy as well. But there were just so many more gaps where it was clear where TOs could get in. So I don't think it's a problem of the third party guys just going, no, I don't want to go and host a Rocket League event anymore. I just think it's like if you're a third party TO, it's like where do you get in? So I think we have to make a change to see more third party events.
Yeah, I know Johnny Boy's mentioned it about having a 2 regional split. I think that's something he's spoken about. I don't know if this is in private or in public, but I think it's with the casters we've had a lot of chats around 2 regional split. And a lot of that was just to talk about the fact that online regionals now are a bit oversaturated. And if you do that many online regionals, like it's so hard to keep up with all of RLCS now because every region has 3 regionals and a closed qualifier. And there's the fact they're on at the same time, you know, like all these watch parties that are going on right now when North America's, like it's North America, MENA's just finishing up as North America's going on. You got European closed qualifier on. So there's just so much to watch that there's too many regionals for the whole of RLCS. And then like viewership, I don't want to say viewership's going down because watch time's going up, but that's just because there's so many Rocket League events on, right? So like there needs to be a little less regionals, and then that's where you start chucking in an extra 2 weeks each split that could go into off season, and then that could be a LAN, and so on, right? That's where we're right now. We're oversaturated with online competition.
A little bit. I mean, it's a good issue to have, isn't it? The more competitions, the better. But there certainly needs to be a little bit of leeway. Anyway, look, we could talk about formats all day, but I know that this is the EU show. I want to quickly get you guys' thoughts because we won't be able to chat to you next week because North America is shaping up, boys, to be an absolute doozy for the third regional. I'm not going to get Chrome and Jarzo's thoughts, but just quickly looking at the standings right now, North America, it's crazy. NRG have thrown themselves back in the running. G2 have, not choked, but they've certainly made things hard for themselves going into the next event. We've basically got a race for the 5th spot. Even Chrome right now is sort of moving in his seat a little bit, thinking about next weekend, because he's sitting in 4th, but
Not safe.
he's not safe. He needs a top 4 to guarantee. Boys, Greg, and I'll start with you. What 5th spot? Like, who's taking it? Who are our top 5 major teams for North America?
I mean, the top 4, I think, is pretty safe. I know Chrome's not feeling that for sure. Like, you still have to perform, but I back based off the performances those 4 teams have shown, they should be able to make a top 8, and then that top 8 would need to be beaten by like a top 2, top 1 finish for any of the teams below, which I think the only teams that could do that would be potentially G2 and maybe Furia. So
NRG?
Yeah, NRG could. I think they've got to prove. They got to prove they're at that level. Like, G2 had a really tough run in that Swiss.
Yep.
So I am fairly certain if they just roll the dice again, they'll have a better Swiss in the Fall Invitational. Yeah, it's tough. I think G2 is going to make it. And then I think if there's any team that can come in here and cause an upset, it's going to be Furia. And they just come in and pull out a world's level performance and then knock SSG out of the top.
So before I get Cash, is that if Furia don't make it, Gregan, is that a failure of a first split for a Furia to not make the major coming over to NA?
I believe so. I think to see South America send the 2 teams that they will be sending, and I've analyzed their recent final, it's not good Rocket League, not compared to what South America have sent to previous events. So South America massively decreased in value, and the world and the majors will decrease in value then, right? Because you're missing out on having Furia and 5 North American teams. I guess even like now with Gen G, you're losing out on more North American teams. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a shame if Furia don't make it, because I think they should be at majors with the quality they're showing.
Just looking as well, there's DRX posted. So I think 6 to 8 from G2 all the way down to Shopify have to win the regional to clinch a major spot, which is absolutely crazy. Cash, what have you got though? Who's your 5th spot? Is it G2? Or you're throwing a little spanner in the works, or has someone got to jump space station?
Nah, I think it's the top 4 is pretty safe, and I think G2, at least in my opinion, I think they're clear for 5th. I don't think Energy could have just had a good regional for me. I don't think they've convinced me enough, at least. And Furia, I just don't have enough confidence in them to outperform a team like G2. And obviously, G2 did have a really hard run in the Swiss last regional as well.
G2.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It makes sense, doesn't it? They're the team that, they should be in the top 5, but I guess that's the problem you're alluding to, Grant. We really do have too many good teams right now in North America, and it's not, really good bunch of North American teams. Obviously, you've still got your top 5, top 6 really good North American teams, but now we're plagued as well with the complexity, the Furia, the Gen G, that we're just taking spots. Do we need to, go through this whole season? Do we need to shake up the major spots? Do we need to give a few more to say in NA if everyone's going to keep going to NA?
I mean, that's been joked about, hasn't it? Give more spots to NA, but like I said, the structure right now has meant that 2 South American teams have left their region, have gone to North America. Complexity missed out on 2 majors off the back of that, where they probably could have got that from South America if they'd stayed. But obviously it has developed Complexity, right? But I'd say for Furia, the most they developed was through going to international events. The experience playing on stage, the experience playing against the best teams in the world. And if they're missing out on that, like, it's all well and good playing against the best teams in North America every week, but, going to a LAN is the best thing for a team. But, like, you look at Furia, right? They beat NRG, beat Space Station, beat G2 in their Swiss in the last event, which I think is a top team in the region level performance. And then you go down and you look at their quarterfinal, and they just narrowly missed out against version 1. And, like, yes, version 1 were playing super well in that event, but, Furia could have been the team that went on and played Gen G in the final, right? So Furia could be clinching right now for a major spot if that quarterfinal just gone the other way. And if you're in a region that is that close in competition, you're sort of playing the lottery of one of us is going to lose out. And obviously, Cash has felt that through Misfits of like, that final event where you have to clinch. It does feel like, every game, we need to win this game. We need to win this game. And if you're playing every match in your highly competitive region as we need to win this game, otherwise we don't make the major, that's a lot of pressure on these teams. But yeah, who knows? I think Furia could go on and steal a spot if they play the way they've been playing in their better games.
It feels like, yeah, as you said, it's a lot of not luck, but there's just so many game 7s it could go either way. You even look at how Optic sort of their run; they've had so many game 5s in Swiss. Complexity feel like they should be higher, but they're getting tough runs. But look, we'll dissect that next week on the NA show. We're here for the EU show, so we're going to jump over to Europe because we've got this weekend. European Regional number 2. Cash, I want to go back though. Let's talk about Regional 1. How did you guys get top 4? No one was saying Quadrant was going to be a top 4 team. Exo played the absolute series of his life in the quarterfinals. What happened Regional 1? What were your expectations?
Well, my expectations were I wanted at least a minimum top 8. I mean, obviously we had the Invitational and the close qualifier where I was sick for both. So it was kind of hard to judge how we play as a team. But obviously coming into the main event, we wanted a top 8. We had a pretty rough start with the Moy series. And then we dominated EG. And I can't remember who we played after that. I think we played G1 and then we lost. But G1, for some reason, always have our number. Then we played Solar. We obviously went 0-2 down out of nowhere. And then the Snasky came in clutch. And then we got the reverse sweep. And then we played Algeria, beat them, and then BDS. I think we've always been a confident team against BDS just because of the way we play. We're always confident against them. We feel like we've got the right game plan against them. And obviously, EXO, I didn't even do anything that serious. I just felt like I was a prime virtuoso, just demoing everyone. EXO was just doing everything. It was nice.
Prime virtuoso. So you guys get
Yeah.
the semi though, but then you run into an Oxygen. What is with this team right now? Because visually for me, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but they look visually like the most impressive team in the world, just the way they play.
I mean, yeah, I think I can say confidently that they're the best in Europe, but I mean, our series against them, I think we definitely shouldn't have got swept. That we just lost our own mistakes. I think we definitely could have done game 2 and 3.
I mean, I don't see Oxygen being the complete package yet. I think they've got a lot they still need to work on. And so I do see on a day where it starts going badly, it could go very badly because they have some bad habits that they're getting away with through their mechanics. So yeah, we'll see if that continues. I think K Corp genuinely look like a better unit as a team, and I reckon they'll make consistent top runs. I could genuinely see Oxygen not making one of the next 2 events top 8s with the play style that they have. I don't know. I mean, Archie mentioned it, how he wasn't confident with the way they were playing. Like after they, I remember in the last CJCJ show, he said we're going to the replay straight after a game. Like they know that they're not complete package. Well, at least Archie does. So like they know there's stuff to work on. But like I analyzed their replays and I was a bit disappointed because you skipped every goal and you're like, holy, this is the best team in the world. But then you watch the general gameplay around the pitch that, we spoke about teams these days have to be able to break teams down. Their breakdown is like 1 interception away from conceding a lot of the time. And like, that's cool and all, like when you're mechanical, but if you're not having a good day, that intercept comes in. Team knows how to play against you, that intercept comes in and you get knocked out early on. Play against a popping off European bubble team, you lose out on that top run, So that's my thoughts on Oxygen. Like obviously they could work on their flaws that I've just mentioned, but I do believe that they will be an inconsistent team with the way they're currently playing.
I kind of agree. I mean, against us, it was literally just a Joreous show. That man was the best player in the world against us. And then, I mean, they just attack as a free. They leave a lot of open gaps. So I do agree with you with that point.
Do you think that means that they're not going to be a LAN team then, if they're relying so much on their mechanics to save them out of situations?
I'm not sure personally. I mean, I think they've all, if they pop off on LAN, I think at least Archie and Joreous thrive in the LAN environment. I haven't watched them much at a LAN, but I think it'll be very interesting to see how they play.
Yeah, Joreous has been on and off at LANs, right? I mean, literally, we've joked about it. They're the inconsistency players. They're the ones who believe low hours is a good idea, right? Like, they literally scream inconsistency, but then like they are amazing, right? Like when they play well, they're incredible and like seem unbeatable at times. But then, like that's like we said, that's if you skip through the goals, you skip through the highlight packages. You're like they're doing stuff no other team is doing. But then the reason why BDS have had such consistent success over the years is because they have a reliable structure that they can fall back on, and they know what their game plan is. They know how they play. Whereas Oxygen right now feels to me like 3 superstar players who've been chucked together and gone, we'll just score 5 goals in a game and they can't beat that, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I could be proven wrong here and they could sort it out, but, you know, one of them wakes up the wrong side of the bed, the whole team capitulates, you know?
I felt about Moist too back then.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Joyo pre-jumps a bit too much, team can't win. You know, Vatira's not letting the team play the game, team can't win, you know?
Yeah.
Like that team had their problems and somehow mechanic their way through a lot of series. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, Chrome. Do superstar teams work? You've picked up LJ, got a bit more mech this season. Still got Arsenal locking it down. What do you think about these, like the three mechanical teams? Because in the past, or 3 mechanical players, because we don't always see that work. Oxygen, it looks like the first team to really be making it really work. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, like I said, I think that, I mean, since they won that first region, I think they're going to be locked in for that major. Because I feel like you win a region, you get so many points.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That 1 point is huge.
Like, I got 2 top 4s, and I got a total of 18 points. You win a region, you get 16. That's crazy. Yeah. So, like, and then on top of that, I mean, they're friends, right? They've been wanted to play with each other for a long time, and then just didn't happen. I feel like that's also partly why they're low hours. They didn't like their teams previously. So I feel like if now's the time to be motivated and try. But yeah, I do agree, Greg, and like they're the type of players that if once things go downhill, then it's not looking good. But I mean, compared to other EU teams, I thought Carmine had good structure. I just felt like they lack a lot of offense. That's the vibe I got for them.
Eversax looked good in the semis, and then when he wasn't popping off offensively, they struggled a bit. Yeah.
You talking about Exotic?
Yeah, for years.
Yeah,
wait, I was like,
did I say?
You said Eversax.
I said Eversax. Yeah. I started saying the letter E and then just chose a random person in K-Corp. Yeah, Exotic. Yeah, my bad.
Is
I feel like
Eversax
a lot
their
of
sub?
EU teams at the top have their flaws right now. I feel like BDS, I from what I heard way back before the first regional, Seiko wasn't playing the game. So that's probably why they were struggling in the qualifiers and in the regional itself. But I feel like a lot of the other top teams, they're still missing that one key factor. Like I feel like Moist is lacking that defense, K Corp's lacking that offense, and Oxygen, they're just vibing and playing well. They obviously they lack defense, but their offense is hard to guard right now for them. So I think teams need to develop more before I see Oxygen falling off, in my opinion.
So you're saying that EU? Well, we were alluding at the start of the show. Was Greg? And you said that EU was going to be better this season. Are we seeing that yet, or
over
is
the
that
course
more
of the year?
Over the course of the whole year?
Yeah. I mean, right now, I would say North America looks stronger than Europe, but then I think as time goes on, you know, Europe has had a lot of shakeups. You know, the teams have structurally changed a lot. There's a lot of 3 new players coming together. A lot of teams where they've had very little experience together in the past. A lot of last-minute roster swaps. You know, look at Chrome. He's had the whole off-season to work with that team. So I think they've sussed it out and now they're refining. Like, I'm not going to say you've sussed out your full structure, but at least you know what your kind of game plan is and now you're working on refining that kind of thing. Whereas I think a lot of the EU teams are still like not even sure what their play style is, right? They're like they're working that out, and they're working that out in the regionals, right? And that's not a good place to be working out your play style. So that's why we're seeing a little bit of underperformance at times. But that will come with time. And like the best replays to analyze are the ones from your most recent tournament. So, you know, we've only had 1 tournament in EU, whereas we've had 2 in North America. So comparing the full cup to the full open of Europe is obviously gonna look a bit different.
Cash, how often do you guys do replay review?
We have an individual session once a week, so 1-on-1 with Snasky, and then Usually we do like a team session once a week. Depending if we're having a good week, I think usually we just kind of try to stick to the points we've been given and try to perfect them. But usually we have like a one-on-one and a team session like once a week as well.
Interesting. Do you think are other teams like that too that you know of?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know I don't really know what teams have coaches that actually coach, to be honest.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Uh oh.
What do you mean by
I mean,
that,
it's like
Cash?
well, Oxygen have Billy, and I don't actually. I'm not saying this is like a flame or anything, but I don't know if Billy actually coaches them or not.
Hey, Archie said on our second show that they love Billy.
Yeah, Billy is a lovely guy. To be fair, I think he's good for the team, but I don't know if he helps them gameplay wise or not.
Yeah. So
Do you think? Go ahead. Good.
I was gonna say you need a coach who can challenge you. Like obviously you want to have that connection, that friendship, but having a coach who comes in and goes, "Guys, you're not doing that right," and then you have that bad day where you feel like crap and you're like, "God, I hate myself because I can't play the game." But that's what you need to improve. Whereas if every day you're like, "Hey guys, you're doing great. We just need to work on this. You just need to work on your boost management a bit, and then we can get a few more demos, and then like we got this next game, guys. Come on." You go in the next game and you come out, you're like, guys, we're not quite doing it. We need to we need to improve on this. Whereas if someone comes and goes, Cash, and you stop flipping through the air and wasting so much boost, chill out a bit. You need to work on your boost management like we did in that replay analysis, right? It's like you're challenging them. Obviously, the tone is up to the coaches and the players, but you need to be giving these guys a bit of a kick in the butt and make sure that they're working hard.
Do you think Billy is kind of similar to Epic Johnny? Because like how NRG, so I forget who it was saying that like Epic Johnny is supposed to like challenge them mid-series, like get them to do the right thing, but not necessarily like.
That's what Garrett
super
said. I
analyst.
think he says that Johnny's taking that leadership role for them.
Think Billy's like that?
I don't think so. I think the kind of team to kind of just talk it out between themselves. To be honest, maybe I'm taking the wrong idea of the team, but that's how I feel about it.
Almost like when your team's playing well, like everyone's a good coach. You know what I mean? Like when everything's going well, and that's probably Oxygen so far, is that they need to start, they need things to go the other way, and then you see like what the coach actually does. Because I feel like all coaches look good, and probably all the players think the coach is good when you're winning. But then, yeah.
I what I said there, that was me at one point when I was coaching, right? Like I'm not saying that like I've come in at the start and I was instantly challenging people. That was actually, to be fair, that was Nolly who taught me that. Right? Nolly was like, I need you to start telling me what I need to do better. Stop telling me we and start telling me Nolly, I'm not gonna get annoyed if you tell me I'm doing something wrong. So yeah, like I've gone through phases where I've been that, hey guys, it's all good, and especially like you said, when things are going well. But you still need to be learning when you're winning, right? And so I think that's one thing. Like I knew Snasky was going to be good at because he's always been like that. Like even when I coached him, he was always like, "This isn't good enough" when we were winning. So like he's always wanted to be better. And that's why I've always rated Chrome because I feel like Chrome does that. Even though I don't know, I just there's some coaches you get a feel for them, and that's like the same thing with Billy, right? Like you get a feel that he might prove us all wrong, but certain coaches you feel like they don't let their players get away with just turning up, scrimming, and going home.
Tell us, Chrome. Let's.
I got the young lads. I gotta yell at them. I gotta babysit them and I gotta yell at them. I gotta let them know.
Let me set the scene. We're 2-0 down. All right, here I am. I'm on your team, right? And I'm dropping the head a little bit. The comms, they're starting to slip. I'm not quite engaged with the game. I'm probably thinking, oh, we're gonna get swept. This sucks. Let me set the scene there. What are you saying to me?
Well, like we're losing. I mean, it depends on how we're losing, right? So I let the guys know. Listen, guys, what we're doing right in certain areas, and then hey, whatever we're doing wrong, let's look past it. Let's make sure we just try our best, one game at a time, right? Because at the end of the day, like when we had Reddles and we came back, it was about we're doing a lot of things right. It was just we're just missing that one mark, and if we just just focus solely on that, we can bring it back. And just we haven't had to do that this season so far, so I haven't really had to do that. But when I did it with Reddles, for us, it was just one game at a time. We know we were slow starters and just need to focus on what we're doing well.
So
Yeah.
more the positive, like the compliment sandwich, like, hey, we're doing this right. If we just do this,
I mean, you can't just completely batter players and not give them something to look towards, like what they're doing right. You gotta give them positive reinforcement, and then also to give them that information that they need to understand that they need to work on.
Yeah, because that's tournament as well. Tournament's different to scrims. Because scrims, if you lose, that's fine. Like, you need to challenge people in scrims. It's when you go into a tournament, you then have a strategy around how you get the best out of your players. And if, like, there's no point in telling a player you're playing awful in a tournament because it's just going to make them feel bad for a few games and then you lose anyway. But, like, you need to, sometimes psych them up, and whatever way that is. Every player reacts differently. Every team reacts differently. But you work that out in scrims, and then you implement it in, and you create a language as well, right? Like, I'm sure Chrome has got little phrases that he uses in tournaments to sort of trigger
I got my
that
analogies,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, you got that. You got that. Like for example, if you say, "Oh, we're being a bit too aggressive," "Oh, we need to tone that down a bit." Next game, the team could be super passive, and then that's a problem, right? So you learn what your phrasing to make that happen is, and then you implement it. Because if you say something reactively and you've never practiced saying that before in a scrim environment, you don't know how the team's going to react, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so you form a language, you form a set of phrases, you form a mindset for the team. You have your little mental resets, whatever that is for the team. And then when you're in that environment, it's not new to them, so they're going to be able to react to it correctly.
It helps too with teams, like the higher end teams. They all have their roles on a team, and just making sure you're reinforcing your roles. And obviously, like the phrasing of first, second, and third man is really key at the highest level as well. That listen, we're really dropping the ball as second man. Let's make sure we tone it down, or maybe we're playing a little too passive in that role. Let's try to play a little bit aggressive, maybe throw in some fake challenges.
Yeah,
just like little things like that.
Who said watch the Spanish? Am I missing something?
This is a
Nick
famous thing
said
that Nick said when he was with Moist or Queso. He was coaching Queso. That Rise called him out that all he did as a coach, well, not all he did as a coach, but he was like, didn't really offer much apart from watch the Spanish boys.
That was his number one thing.
That was his number one thing.
I feel like all coaches probably have like their one thing. I feel like
mine is like if we're up like 3 goals, 2 goals, like mine's like watch for demos, because a lot of teams are obviously going to try to get that goal back. They're going to just send the house. So just making sure everyone's just on their toes, being aware, head on a swivel.
Mine used to be no matter like how many shots you take, we're going to score eventually. You guys to read that. He'll tell you I said that all the time.
Yeah.
And you could tell back in the day when G2 played, the amount of shots they took with bad accuracy. You could tell.
I think I learned, when people used to do comms videos and people would be like, "Oh yeah, don't upload comms videos because you're giving away your secrets." But then people were like, "Oh, it doesn't really show that much, so just go for it. It's better for the content, right?" I watched a Mouse comms video back when Lethamir was their coach, and he said one little phrase in it that I really liked, and then I used it every single game at the Season 8 Worlds, which was the best we played in ages, which was just kick off to goal. And so that it was a way of us thinking about the next passage of play, of just focusing on kickoff to the goal, to sort of like reset. And it's actually a performance psychology mindset. It's called, like they refer to it as sentences. Like every sentence starts with a capital letter, ends with a full stop. What happens in the middle is a journey, right? Like you always start with a capital letter, always end with a full stop. So that was the kickoff to goal mindset. It was like, whatever happens here, we have to focus on the kickoff until that goal happens.
That's something we applied last season leading into London. Did it for that one kickoff, and then it still fell apart. So sometimes nerves just overtake and you don't do the right things. So a little bit of sadness there for you. But
Cash, what's Snasky's? So what's Snasky's one thing?
He's go-to.
Yeah.
I don't really think he has a go-to thing to say. He's just always calm and composed, and that kind of keeps the team calm. And he always just kind of makes sure we're not nervous or anything. More than anything. I haven't really had much experience of it though, because we've only had one regional, and we played 5 series, 6 series.
Is he the first team coach you've ever had? Now I think about it.
No, I had Andy the Mandy on Misfits as well.
Oh, that's right. I forgot because I remember he was on Singularity. I didn't forgot he went to Misfits.
Yeah.
First time I met Andy the Mandy was Season 5 Worlds. He was sat in the VIP area, I think. I walked past him and he was like, "Oh, you can get me a packet of crisps from the green room."
He's funny.
Oh, it was funny.
Oh, man.
Does Snasky talk a lot mid-series? Well, I guess it's only really been 6 series for you guys. Did he talk a lot in those 6 series?
Between games, if there was something especially that we'd been working on in scrims that we weren't actually doing in tournaments, he would speak. But usually, he just try and keep us motivated and keep our heads up if he felt like our heads were going down or something.
Okay, so not always critical discussion, but
Yeah.
getting stuff in there sometimes. Okay.
What are your guys' thoughts on just comms in general, Cash? What are your team comms like? Is it very, very standard?
Yeah, I would say our comms are very standard. Yeah.
6
I
man's
mean,
comms.
6-man comms. I
I'm
think a bit
going.
more than 6-man's
I'm
comms,
left.
to be fair.
Back left.
We just come our position a lot and like what players in what position, what we're watching, what we're trying to do with the ball. I think it's very generic.
I think comms have evolved so much.
Mm.
Go on.
I don't know. You know, comms teams used to just not talk, bro.
Yeah.
And I
As
feel
long as
like me hearing Cash
Sorry,
say
go ahead.
that, it's like it feels good. It feels good that like even new teams are recognizing like comms are good.
I mean, as long as you're being proactive with your cons, if you're not like calling stuff as it happens, like 50, like demoed him when you know what I mean, like or just like I got demoed like 20 seconds before, like or something. Oh, he's got it. Like well, obviously he's got the ball. He's in the air. You know, like come
Oh,
on,
dude,
like just be proactive and not delayed and
he's
give
got it
positioning.
to
It's
be
a very
one of the
simple.
worst.
The one
That
that
has to
be
be one of the
efficient.
worst comms.
the
bro.
one that sticks out is I don't want to like flame this guy because he's just announced his retirement. Obviously, stellar career panda. But when Dig released their comms back in the day, and there was so much going on, he'd be like, "I'm on my way to the back left boost. I've just arrived. I've just got the 100. I'm leaving the back left boost." You know, like stuff like that. There was so much like additional info that was unnecessary. That just
I mean, Panda's a go for that, to be fair, because K-Dot doesn't speak English and he's directing his
True.
team. He's always been that way, where he directed his team, so it makes it easier so they don't have to think. I always thought that
Yeah.
was like a cheat code back then, the way he
Yeah.
communicated.
I'm
Yeah.
joking.
I mean, it's about finding a language that's as quick and efficient as possible that doesn't. So it's like anything. If you overdo it, it can become a problem. Same thing with coaching, right? Coaches overdone become a problem. I've done it in my past where I've overcoached, things get worse. Comms overdone become a problem. That's why, like, you know, the famous guild no comms day where we didn't have comms and Scrub joined Lawless stream, right?
Hey,
That was because
good time.
our comms were so bad. Our comms were so bad, and there was a lack of willingness to change them just from bad habits, that it made us play worse because things were being called out that would make someone change a decision negatively. And then because of that, we played better when we just had no comms and just played like focused on the gameplay. So yeah, you got to make sure you use your comms effectively, and like what Cash described as all stuff that's off the ball comms, the things that don't directly change your decision. Because if you start calling someone pass it left now, and they didn't think to do that, they're about to do something else. They're gonna be like, oh, what do I do? You know. Whereas if you give them a comm like I'm covering left side, then someone's gonna be like, well, that's great because that means if I ever feel like I want to pass it in that direction, I know I've got someone in that vague vicinity. So it's like that. The decision, it doesn't force a decision; it gives someone options.
Yeah, it's a favorite thing in like fighting games. If you guys ever like delved into that, is a thing called option select. Just having multiple options available to you. Like you don't always have to pass left or right. You just know that someone's there just in case.
Yeah.
That's actually, yeah, that makes so much sense. The amount of times it, like, if you...
CJ right now is like, I could be a pro again now.
It's like, if you know, people that, you know, when you change your mind, like, mid-aerial, this happens so much, like, last second, it never, like, works out well. Do you know what I mean? If you sort of, like, went committed to one thing, and then last second someone calls something, and you try and do it, and usually after, you know, it never really comes off, so that's very interesting. Look, though...
I think when flip resets as well were becoming a thing in, like, Season X. Like a lot of teams didn't know that you can force a team high or just go straight ball because it only limits their options. It makes it easier so defensively you can counterattack right away. And a lot of teams didn't understand that. A lot of teams were just like, "Oh my god, when do I challenge? When do I go?" So that was abused a lot with like the high end teams as well. And now teams are gotten better about it.
I gotta be honest.
Cool.
This conversation is actually so validating. This is a conversation we wouldn't have had if Chrome and I were still competitors. Like,
Just the game's got better, isn't it?
Well,
Everyone's gotten better.
I'm hearing Gregan and Chrome say things that they have done that are like things I've done, but Chrome and I have never talked about it because like one, we've competed, right? Because we never really had an opportunity to talk about it here because we don't want to give each other like a leg up, obviously.
Yeah.
And now we're free to talk about it now, and it's like some good stuff.
Wait, this is the fun thing about not being part of a team now is like Verge back in the day got a bollocking from Violent Panda because he released their rotation tool that they had, and Violent Panda was like, "You're leaking how we do things," and I literally messaged Verge like, "Oh my god, this is so good! I've conceptualized this for a while, but I've never been able to visually show it. I'm sending this to my team now." It was like he literally revealed like it, and it's the same thing like I said with Lethamir revealing the comms video. Like when you're part of a team, you do have to keep some stuff secret because otherwise you're potentially helping a team out, and like Jazzo and I now don't have a team that we have to worry about because we're neutrals, so we can just reveal all our secrets, and technically no one can tell us off.
It's why the top teams have an edge over a lot of teams because they know how to pick up on certain things and then use it to their advantage and add it to their game. It's been like that for the longest time.
Do you have secrets, Chrome? Do you have any secrets that if you were outside the team, you'd be like, wow, do I have something to tell everyone?
I definitely would be able to help a lot of teams out there, I feel, with a lot of their flaws.
See, now you got me wondering.
I'm the coach as well, where I'm like very like counter-strat and like tendency focused, so I can know like what certain players are gonna do before they do it. That's like my little thing that I've been good at for a long time.
It's so hard to tell if coaches are actually doing like the same things you guys are talking about. Like now, I'm thinking back to Billy. Cash has got me on Billy now. I'm like, is Billy doing these things? Is he saying these things? I have no idea.
Well, it's it's one of those things as you said when it's all about when they start losing, when they start not, the mechanics aren't saving them. What does he have to bring to the table? So I think the jury will be out on him. Obviously, Archie speaks very highly of him, but I think that Mickey Mouse probably could have coached them to that regional win for the first time because they were just popping off. Everything's gelling, everything's honeymooning, perhaps, Cash, which I guess let's segue then because I don't want to keep these guys all day. Let's hop straight into this EU regional to cap it off because it is quite late for these boys. Cash needs to go to sleep. He's got a big performance coming up this weekend. I want to get your top 5, but before that, I've just looked at the standings. Can I just get your guys' thoughts on Team Liquid, a team that last season was this up-and-coming, the kids coming in, going to take over, almost made the World Championships off London. What are your thoughts on them this season? I feel like no one's really talking about Liquid like they were last season.
I mean, I just think people have got used to like the way they play. I think people have adapted to their play style, like where they're very aggressive. I still rate them very highly in EU. I still think they're a top 5 team, at least in my opinion. But I think everyone is just finding that counter to them with the way they play.
I mean, they're just going too fast, isn't it? Just chill out a bit.
Like I was at LAN. They go for every ball. It's crazy.
Guess, do you guys know ball chasing stats well? Like if I said
yeah.
Oski's average speed was 1676.
Oh, you can't go much faster than that.
Across the whole regional.
Fast. And that's really fast.
Atto was 1627, right? And then poor old Acronic kept going, oh, no, I'm not going for this ball. You guys are there, right? It was just constant, like supersonic speed. He was 25% of the game at supersonic, Oski, right? That's outrageous, right? And then I can't remember Acronic, but like Acronic, when I was watching the replays, there was about 4 times I remember Acronic could have scored if he was he could go for the ball. But he would start driving towards it, use that 30 boost to build up the speed. He's like, God, I can see the goal. I've got my dodge. I'm ready to ping this top corner. And then there's just like, whoa, Oski's here. And they're like, whoa, Atto's gone. Like, they just chilled out. They'll be able to score more goals, There you go. That's my breakdown. Expert, feel free to use that one.
That does make sense. Those kids are absolutely crazy, but I guess it will work when everything's working. It's probably similar to an Oxygen when they're hitting these. But maybe at the same time, as Cash is saying, everyone's expecting them now to be going for everything. So perhaps everyone's playing a little bit smarter against Liquid rather than trying to outpace them. They might just be letting them sort of do their thing a little bit more and then capitalizing. Cash, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, to an aspect, yeah. I mean, who did they even play last region? Who did they even lose to? It was Moist, right?
They lost to Carmine,
Yeah.
Oxygen,
Carmine.
and Moist. So
Yeah, I mean, they had a pretty rough run, to be honest. But I do think a lot of teams are starting to get used to them just being way too fast and capitalizing on their mistakes.
It's a huge
Yeah.
plus though, having speed in your game. But if they were able to like slow it down at any point, they're going to be a disgusting team. That's something that Moist was really good at. They're so quick, and then they're able to slow it down. That's what made them really good and abusive in EU.
That's the best thing about going fast is you can slow down, right? Like,
Yep.
just the classic
the
thing
trigger.
of, yeah, the classic thing if you see a non-mechanical player playing ranked against all the zoomers, they'll just fake everything and just slow challenge everything and all that kind of thing. It works really effective there because they haven't got the brain to slow down. At the highest level, they play even faster, and then that's where you got to sprinkle it in creatively every sort of like, 1 in 10, every 2 in 10, whatever it is, the rate of it. And then that mixes it up, and then that's where the person comes challenge you early, and they go zooming past you, or they fake challenge you, and you've gone, haha, I believed you were going to do that anyway. So it's like the changing of speed to be able to go slower is one of the greatest assets of going fast.
Yeah, you can't create space without going fast at some point. Pretty much, if you're always going to slow it down, as you said, you turn into a little bit of an NRG in net, and then you get Com demoing you 20 times a game. So I agree with that. But look, I guess that's Liquid. We'll see how they go this regional. But to finish off, I just want to get our top 5 this weekend. I want the top 5 predictions. So basically, we're getting our top 4 and then our best performing team that drops in quarters. So our best performing 5 to 8 team, and then obviously our top 4. Who wants to start? Gregan looks like he's researching the teams right now. So
No, I was just looking up Liquid at the full major to see what their stats were there. And the main difference is that their speed is more like they're all going really fast, but it's more balanced, right? Like Chronic is getting involved, right? So they do move fast, but I think it's like it was Oski and Atto only before, and a Chronic couldn't find his slot in it. So maybe they just need to move fast, a bit more spread out, and that'll probably help.
I mean, you would think that's something they'd realize after London, because they got counterattacked by Falcons when they first played them and got destroyed by that, and then realized G2 was doing the same thing to them, and then slowed it down a little bit. They more control.
Yeah, they just go too fast.
Yeah, yes, no. Let's wrap it back. Gregan's getting me off topic. Jarzo, I want you to start us off. Top 5.
Top 5
EU this weekend.
All right, I'm gonna go top to bot. All right. BDS is making a comeback out of nowhere. RK out of nowhere. Okay. Beating Quadrant in grand finals because it's a CJCJ show buff. All right.
100%.
It's gonna be Oxygen and Moist in semis. And KC is going to be the best out of the quarter losers.
No top 4.
No, KC. Okay, listen. KC is a fraud team in my book.
Oh,
I still the results just don't look convincing to me. Okay, I don't know, something. It's like the teams they beat aren't like the hardest teams to beat. The teams they lose to.
Yeah, to be fair, they did get pretty fortunate in the quarterfinals to get Tundra.
Like, look at how they qualified. Look at the quarterfinal.
I mean, you can only
the semis was a
challenge,
but
you said, but the Swiss they played Solary, Liquid, BDS, G1. Yeah.
No.
Pretty solid.
Jarzo's just like throwing out a statement.
Beating Solary, beating Liquid. No. Beating Solary, beating Liquid is like not difficult because Liquid's like, if it was before the event, I would have rated Liquid higher. Like I did rate Liquid pretty high. Like I was hoping Liquid would do well, but beating them, especially in Swiss, like Swiss is so Mickey anyways.
Okay.
Massive call. Anyway,
losing to BDS is like that's just straight up what we expect, right?
So it was a close game.
It was, which I guess you could rate them highly, but for that, but it doesn't push them much higher because it's just a couple games they won, right? Like beat it, like it's just literally 2 games. It's not a series, not a full series. And then they beat G1, who I wasn't rating at all. Like I don't see much from G1 until the final day of, or like until their quarter, I guess. Yeah, their quarter.
I mean, Cash said they got your number, so you scared
Yeah.
of G1.
I'm never scared of a team. I think you can beat them, but I mean, we played them twice and lost them twice, so I think it's safe to say at the moment they have our number. But I'll make sure that's not the case for next regional.
So that Bim Bam.
Give us your 5 then.
My 5.
Mm.
Okay, I think the top 2 will be Oxygen and BDS. I think the semi-finals will be Quadrant, got to back the boys,
Yes.
and Moist. And I think the best performing team from 5th to 8th will be Liquid.
Respectable like that.
Respectable. I mean, you have to put. I'll go now. I mean, yeah, we have to put Quadrant top 4 because he wouldn't be on the show if he wasn't. We've got, for those that don't know, we've had, is it 8? It's 8 out of 8, including Chrome, but 6 out of 6 guests. Every single guest on the CJ show this season has come top 4. No pressure on Cash to continue that.
I don't feel pressure. It's all good.
Exactly.
Carry both of us.
Number 1, look, I'm going to go Oxygen again because until I see them fall, I know that Gregan said they've got some inconsistencies, but until I see it, apart from losing to Ayagiri in round 1 of Swiss, last regional, which I'm not sure how that happened.
Dizzy, innit?
It's
demon.
I need to see another falter though. I need to see them have a bad week, but I think the honeymoon, if it is a honeymoon, will continue because I've been impressed with them. Second spot, look, I want to back you in, Cash. I want to go Quadrant boys for second spot. I still think that you guys are underrated. People thinking you're not going to be able to get there, but I think you can find a way to get into the top 2. I think you got the Lando Norris factor. There's something about you guys that you're destined to make the major. Third spot, I think Carmen are just a lock for top 4 every regional. I don't know what Jarzo's talking about. I think they're in. 4th spot, Moist, being very boring. I think they're always there. And then I'm just going to go BDS again. I think they're going to drop again in the quarters and have to pull a G2 for the 3rd regional to make the major. Have to kick and scratch, but that's my 5. Chrome, you go. I want to
go next
last because I think he's got some juicy takes up there.
All right, my 5th best team out of the top 8. I'm gonna go Moist. I feel like they're gonna drop to a tough opponent first round. The 4th best team, I'm put Quadrant. I feel like they got everything going right now for them. That big win over BDS to make top 4 originally was pretty good, and I don't think it was a fluke. I think the 3rd best team, I'm gonna go Oxygen. I think Oxygen is gonna get top 4, but not top 2. And then I think it's gonna be a Frenchophone / French final. I think BDS is gonna beat Carmine Core in the finals.
Like it.
You're a smart man. Chrome is a smart man.
But if BDS does not win, this is the last time I root for them to come back.
Yeah, I guess top 5. I think Carmine Corp's going to be number 1 seed because I think they're just going to consistently make finals. And then I think BDS in this next event are going to pop off, and I think they're going to do well in the invitation as well. I think Oxygen will just get carried through this first event, getting those points, and I reckon they'll make quarters, maybe semis again, but I don't think they're going to make another final this split. Then so that's 3, right? Then yeah, Moist will probably make it. I don't rate them right now with Astral. I think they lack a little bit of structure, and their boost management's pretty poor. Which Vatira, like replacing Vatira, the amount of boost that he saved the team by his boost management. And now Astral's the complete opposite end of the spectrum as a boost muncher. I think they're gonna boost starve themselves out of tournaments. So I reckon, yeah, Moist and then Quadrant sneaking in that 5th spot. Cash breaks the Cash curse, makes a major. We see a Cash roar on stage, and yeah, that's my 5.
You haven't got them top 4. I think we're getting a poll up. CJCJ's getting a poll. Who's got the best?
Gregan doesn't believe in the buff, man. That's not fair.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, I think the next event, I think Moist will be in the quarters and Quadrant make big semis run. But that was my end of season top 5.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Look, I think Carmine, Gregan, I want to get your thoughts because you probably are you analyzing more Rocket League now? You're not. I guess now you're doing more content. It feels like you're watching every region, analyzing. Who do you think, from your, I guess, your in-depth replay views, is it Carmine that's looking like the best? Is it BDS?
I think BDS. It was kind of pointless analyzing them because it just didn't look like BDS. I mean, it did look like BDS in the sense of structure was there, but they just didn't look comfortable on the ball. So I think that's something just with a 2-week grind. I think they had a little bit of a rival syndrome of like now they felt what winning worlds is like. They're a bit like, oh, you know, that's it, we're done now. And then now they got a bit of a kick in the butt to work harder again. So they'll have been grinding ranked. Cash, have you been coming across them in ranked? I don't know.
Not really. Kid with Seiko a little bit, but I don't think they've been playing that much.
Yeah.
I think it's just the Quadrant effect. I think they're still upset about losing to us.
Yeah. I came across you in ranked the other day, didn't I, Cash? You carried me. That was
Yeah,
fun.
you're welcome for the carry. I hope you enjoyed it.
No, I just kept serving you juices, and you just kept going around doing Cash things. I was just like, I think I got like 200 points. You had almost 1,000. It was great.
I was surprised I got you. To be fair, I was quite surprised.
Mate,
Why is that? Why are you surprised? You think Gregan's goated in ranked?
He does his job. He does his job.
He's a workman.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Cash, I
Keeps
have
it
to ask
simple.
you because I was looking at your Liquipedia earlier. Talk me through your aerial and steering stance. You must have some of the highest in the league. You got like 4.65 point whatever. What's going on there?
Wow.
I don't know. On console, I was on like 9.8 on both, and then I moved to
Huh?
PC, and I thought, yeah. Well, it was input delay, and I played on like a massive TV, so I had it to the highest possible. And I moved to PC, and I was like, yeah, I need to turn this down a lot. I've actually just changed my aerial sensitivity lower, not by a lot, but
What
I
are
don't
you
know. It
telling
just
me?
feels good.
It
I
was
think I'm at like
9.
4.8 aerial. Yeah, it was at 9. I think it was dead on 9.
Is Snasky still at 10?
I don't think so.
Because
There's
I
no
think,
way.
yeah, because I remember Snasky back in the day used to have it on 10 when I coached at Supersonic Avengers. I don't know if he ever put it down or anything, but yeah. I mean, anything above like 2 or 3, there's not a huge difference. It's just basically binary input at that point. The moment you leave the dead zone, you're at max, right?
I'm not sure.
Is that so you just is that what you're saying?
Well-
If it's a full turn past like 3 anytime you touch it, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
That's
it's
probably
more
what it feels
K-
like, he says.
Yeah, it's more like KBM then, right? Of like binary input of turn equals full input.
I guess it depends on your dead zone, I guess.
Well,
Well,
dead zone
I
will
mean-
initiate the movement, right? Like the dead zone initiates the movement, and then the sort of sliding scale of 0 to 100% movement then just gets shrunk down to a tiny little range. And then it goes from like 0 to 100 in the first little movement of the stick, and then from the rest of it, it's 100, right? Because you can't go above 100, but I believe that's how it works.
Because so let's say you have your dead zone at 0.1. That means if you have a 3 sensitivity, going from is it going from 10 to 40 or 10 to 30%?
Right, we're gonna do some
From
maths
middle.
with Gregan, I believe. I'm probably gonna get told I'm wrong. Right, so you see here, this looks like a nipple, but so this circle around the edge is the edge of your physical stick, right? So if you push your stick to the edge, that's what it will hit. The tiny little circle in the middle, that's your dead zone. So while the stick sits in that, it doesn't do anything. It's 0 input. You don't turn. But then this little mini circle, that's your 0 to 100%. So that's just a gradient from 0 up to 100. And then the rest of that area here is just 100. So I believe the sensitivity will just shrink this outer circle in towards the dead zone. So like if you've got 1.4-ish, this will be
Bigger.
like close to the edge, and then that whole 0 to 100 gradient will move through the edge. I believe that's how it works.
So the lower your sense, the bigger the nipple is what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's kind of the reason why people like having around 1.4 sensitivity is because it's the maths works out that if you want to do a full strength diagonal movement, you need to have the sensitivity be a little bit higher, because hitting this bit here physically on your controller is quite tricky to do, especially with like cross and square and all that kind of stuff, like the way the dead zones work. I won't get into the maths of that. But yeah, essentially the reason why sensitivity is increased is so you can hit these points on that circle a lot easier.
No more heavy car bug.
Yeah.
That's what
Have you
Chrome's
ever
been
seen
struggling
Oversaturation?
with for 4 years. All right, then, boys. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll wrap it up with Greg and just giving you a bit of scientific knowledge. But as we said, it is, I guess, 2:30 a.m. for you boys right now, just coming up. So
Yeah, 2:30. Yeah.
yeah, all right. We need to get these boys off to bed. Well, not Gregan, because he can do whatever he wants now. He runs his own business, but Cash needs to get his beauty sleep so he can get top 4, continue the CJ buff, boys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on. Hopefully, we can get you guys on again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. It was fun. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming
Yeah.
on, guys.
Thanks for
Come
having
on,
us.
boys.
Absolute legends.
Good luck,
Right,
Cash.
guys. Yeah, good luck to Cash. Good luck to Quadrant coming up. But that's going to be it. GG's in chat. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. That was CJ show number 4. Make sure you follow at Gregan, top left. There's his @ and Cash. I'm not sure why he's iCash1. But he probably made that when he was born in 2019. Thanks, everyone, hanging out, though. Appreciate everyone. This was another great show. And yeah, tune in. Follow Gregan. As you said, he's doing analysis. He's doing all that good stuff over on his Twitch, which is at Gregan as well. I think.
Yeah.
Just Gregan. He's got branding everywhere. And Cash, make sure he gets the dub this weekend. Continue the buff, and hopefully we'll see everyone at the major. But that's it for us. Stay tuned next week for the NA show. And yeah, CJ show number 4 is a wrap. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Need to find the right scene. Bye.